Where your treasure is, there will your heart be also. God has given us unlimited treasures in His Word. Every time we open it, we can discover a new treasure or admire an old one. What will we find today? Here's Carla Early with Treasure Hunt in the Word.
Many of Jesus' miracles began with His compassion. Preceding the feeding of the 5,000, Matthew says, "And when Jesus went out, He saw a great multitude, and He was moved with compassion for them and healed their sick." Before the feeding of the 4,000, He told His disciples, "I have compassion on the multitude because they have now continued with me 3 days and have nothing to eat. I do not want to send them away hungry, lest they faint on the way." When the blind man yelled for Him as He was passing by, instead of being annoyed, it says Jesus had compassion and touched their eyes, healing them. Before quite a few other miracles, Scripture records that Jesus' compassion moved Him to use His power to comfort people in some way. One of my favorite passages is Luke 7:11-15. It says, "Now it happened the day after that He went into a city called Nain, and many of His disciples went with Him, and a large crowd. And when He came near the gate of the city, behold, a dead man was being carried out, the only son of his mother, and she was a widow, and a large crowd from the city was with her. When the Lord saw her, He had compassion on her and said, 'Do not weep.' Then He came and touched the open coffin, and those who carried him stood still. And He said, 'Young man, I say to you, arise.' So he who was dead sat up and began to speak, and He presented him to his mother." What power Jesus had! He turned a funeral into a celebration, all because He had compassion on a widow. He saw her pain and helplessness and used His power, His omnipotence, to change everything. I love to read the Bible and see God's wonders and miracles in action, but I also love to read and hear the testimonies of God's compassion and omnipotence today. As I read a testimony in the Voice of the Martyrs magazine recently, it reminded me of the story of the widow of Nain. A young man in the Middle East had heard the gospel, then rejected it. Later, his life got so bad with drugs and such that he decided to end it. As he was doing so, he heard a voice saying, "Stop. If you want out of this life, I can help you. I have risen from the dead, and it's much easier getting you out of this way of life than raising the dead." The Lord had compassion on him and used His power to completely change that young man's life. Many times, God sees how helpless we are in a situation. He has compassion on us. Then He reaches into our lives and uses His power and does something that only He can do. He changes something. It may be a phone call out of the blue, a physical healing, a spiritual renewal, or just even an attitude adjustment. But whatever He does, we know that it was His hand doing it, because no one else could do it. And that change makes all the difference. When has He done that for you? Maybe right now you're in a mess, like the young man whose testimony I read, or some other impossible situation, like the widow of Nain, and you feel helpless and hopeless. Let me assure you, the Lord has compassion, and He has power. Power to heal your wounded spirit, power to resurrect the dead hopes, power to change hearts. Will you watch and see what He does today?
You can contact us at treasurehuntintheword@gmail.com. We'd love to hear the treasures God has given you through His Word. You can listen to other episodes at our website, which you can find in the description below. Thanks for listening, and remember, where your treasure is, there will your heart be also.